Hello, mentors. Welcome to our podcast series, Mentorships in Education, brought to you by Just Education at justeducationfirst.com. I am your host, Judith Epstein. I am very excited about the wide range of experts who have volunteered to give up their time and expertise. They will share their innovative ideas, their exciting perspectives, their rich resources, and their research with us. Please continue to delve into these topics on their websites and with your legal counsel, healthcare provider, and education professional. Our guests will have information that will be relevant to mentors supporting struggling students, parents, teachers, administrators, legal support, and health professionals. We will address all levels of education with issues that affect academic performance. Our goal is to open discussions and introduce a variety of approaches to those searching for information in a free venue. So, mentors, let me introduce our guests for today. Welcome, everybody, to episode 41 of Mentorships in Education. This is Judith Epstein, your host. The warm weather is coming for many of us, and regardless of where we live, we're looking to get out and do things, and often that's with our families. We've been in darkness and in solidarity for so long, but sometimes taking our family on a trip can be a challenge, and there are hurdles that some of us in traveling may face, especially with children who have certain challenges. Our guest today, Nick Lander, can help us with that. And that's one of the reasons I wanted to have him be part of our podcast, because I think he has some exciting doings that no one else seems to be addressing. And I think it's very exciting. So I want to thank you, Nick, for taking the time to be with us today. I very much appreciate it.
Thank you for having me, Judy.
You're very welcome. I want to tell our mentors a little bit about you before we get started with the interview. So Nick is the father to 3 neurodivergent girls. And after many years of being associated with the hospitality industry in the hotel field, he says he was made redundant and his world came to crashing down on him. His love for his family and his constant search for acceptance has been his number one mission in life. And that is why he started the Kimmel Foundation.com and KimmelSolutions.com, which gives people the tools and guidance they need to understand neurodiversity. This is a very unique service. In my research, I haven't really found this is available anywhere else. And I hope that families who are thinking about traveling, who may be facing some of these issues, will check his links and be in touch with him once you hear his story. Nick, why don't we start the conversation a little bit with your background? You can talk a little bit about your experiences in the hotel industry. And I'm sure that those experiences in hospitality gave you some kind of a foundation for what you're doing now, things that you've seen or experiences you've had or just learning skills. So why don't you talk a little bit about that, if you don't mind?
Yes, of course, Judy, and thank you. So I was lucky enough to start work at the age of 13. I started work in a hotel restaurant, just bussing tables. And at the age of 13, I'd got money in my pocket. I thought I was king of the world. I really did. It was an incredible thing to be working at that age it was a 4-star hotel in the centre of London. And that was basically the start of my journey in the industry. So I've managed to do 35 years in the industry. I've loved every day of it. But it has taken a toll. Working 5-6 days a week, 12 hours a day. I missed a lot of the growing up of my girls, and now is the time to pay that back to them. But when I was lucky enough to start at the age of 13, I wasn't diagnosed with anything. I was just a normal young person earning money at a weekend and loving it. my mum and dad couldn't understand why I loved to get up at 4:30 in the morning to go and start work in the centre of London at 7 o'clock, and travelling in on the bus, on the night bus to get to work. I loved it. I just loved everything. It gave me a nice sense of purpose. I progressed through the hotel. So I ended up doing a 5-year work placement scheme there where they paid to send me to college because I left school with nothing. I hated every minute of school. I couldn't wait to leave.
Why? Why did you hate every minute of school? Why?
It just wasn't for me. It was the constant pressure. It was the worry of exams. And in those days, there wasn't a mechanism where we have these days where it's part assessment during the year. It was final exams. And I couldn't do them. I think my mum spent the first year having to take me to school to get me into school.
Wow.
Because that was the only thing I could do. And she just said, you've got to have an education. You've got to have an education. I came out with the bare minimum. I don't know how I got what I got. I got a B in food studies. So that was obviously an inkling as to where I was going to go into the hospitality industry. So, we started at 13, and then I progressed and worked for the Sheraton chain for, I think it was about 5-6 years. And I did another project with them, and I got to work around all the different areas within the hotel. It was great. I was meeting new people. I was working with some great people, and I got a sense of purpose. I knew what I wanted to do now. I always wanted to be a chef leaving school because my dad said, people will always need food, Nick. You can't go wrong. People will always need food. So I did my time in the kitchens, and it wasn't for me. I wanted to be more sort of front facing and sort of customer focused. So after working for Sheraton, I went to work for a private group and did 8 years for them. And I landed myself a role as a concierge, which is something I hadn't done in my previous time at the hotels.
Wow.
And I loved it. It was the best job in the world. I was able to make people's dreams come true. You'd come to me with the strangest request of having dinner at the Ivy at 8 o'clock on a Friday night. We knew people, we could help. I worked magic, and it was fantastic. I loved it. So this progressed. I managed to work my way up into the Claydor, which is the Concierge Association. It's a worldwide association. And I worked my way up to being vice president. And I served for 3 years in our highest office of being a concierge. And I just wanted to give back to the younger generation the opportunities that I was given as a young person in the hotel industry. I didn't study to be a concierge. I was given an opportunity by a head concierge who saw something in me and said, do you know what, Nick, I'm going to take a risk on you. I wouldn't normally do it, but I'm going to take a risk. And that's been my whole sort of ethos in life, about trying to sort of give things back. Someone gave me an opportunity and I wanted to pay it back.
Did you have any inkling when you were going through all this, your time at school, your work, did you have any feeling that you had there was any difference between you and other kids and the way they learned, or was there any sense that no?
I didn't see that at school. I didn't see it at work. And I just thought, the management team would just see something in me that I was very well organized. I like structure, and I'd write everything down, and I would work my day through my list of what was coming in. So I'd know who my guests were coming in. I knew that the last time they stayed with me, we had a bottle of champagne in their room, and they liked strawberries and not raspberries. So I kept considerable logs on all of my old clients. So when they came back, I'd have the information I needed. And my management team just thought it was just me being organized. And it was only when we were going through the diagnosis with my youngest daughter, and we were looking at all the various paperwork that we were looking at. So it's something called a Connors list, where you tick all your, do you do this often, little, a lot, and that sort of thing. Uh-huh. And I was ticking this for my daughter, and I'm going, oh my word, I do that. And oh yeah, and I do that as well. And okay, this is quite interesting. So it was like that whole light bulb moment when I thought, you know what, possibly, it's served me well. I've used my skills that I've got to my great advantage, and I can't say anything bad. I loved it.
Kind of like you checked one for her and one for you, kind of a thing.
It is.
But you didn't think of it as a disability. You thought of it as an ability, a strength. This was your strength.
100% my ability, 100% my ability, and I loved it. It was looking after guests and doing what we did was fantastic, and it just got me thinking. It's a struggle for families. And this was always my at the back of my mind. I know when I travel how anxious I am about my family travel.
Okay, I want to ask you about that. Yes.
It's about that, and this is the important thing, and it's just it was about sharing knowledge and using what we call sort of lived in experiences here in the UK of I haven't studied autism or neurodiversity in depth. I don't have a degree in it. This is my struggle.
You've lived it, though. That's a lot better than studying it.
It's my lived-in experience. As through our problems we've had with our youngest daughter, with people trying to understand her, because obviously girls mask, and she was always the quiet one that sat at the back of the room and wouldn't say anything. It was like, don't talk to me, don't touch me. I'm here because my mum and dad tell me I've got to go to school. Don't make me do anything. I'm going to sit here and try and get through the day. And it was the good old fashioned Coke bottle at the end of the day. She'd make the 8 hours at school, come out, and it would be challenging. And it's through our struggle with schools to try and get acceptance for my daughter, because everyone understands that if you're in a wheelchair, what you need to put in place for someone with a wheelchair. But with a hidden disability, it's a different ballgame. And a lot of our educators over here are just not quick enough on the ball to see these things. And it's sad.
Can you speak a little bit to the challenges that you have had in traveling with your children, things that you began to realize you needed to do to make your children more comfortable when they travel?
So, as a family, we've traveled with our girls since they were babies.
Right.
We like to ski in the winter. We like to go to nice hot places in the summer. We're no different from anyone else. I think my eldest was 6 months when we first took her to our first skiing trip, and that was her first flight. And it was okay. That was okay. We seem to have more challenges with our younger daughter, and the challenges are probably a lot to do with me as well, because I was always very anxious because of who I am about traveling. Ironic for a travel agent to be anxious about traveling, but it is what it is.
Kind of an oxymoron there.
But I'm honest. I can say everything's all right, but deep down, I know it's not. And I am a bit of a control freak when it comes to us traveling. I don't leave any stone unturned, and it's very important for me to see what we're doing as a family in advance before we actually travel, and the detail that we go into. And it annoys the hell out of my wife. She said, "Why are we at the airport 4 hours before we need to?" And I said, "I just need to see it. I need to see it." And I'll always board the plane with my daughter first. And my wife's saying, "But the pilots aren't even on the plane." And I'm going, "Look, I just need to do it. I just need to sit. I need to be on the plane, because then I can relax knowing that my youngest daughter is relaxed. And then we can start doing what we need to do."
So you started to put in place a process that you needed to follow through with your family in order for you and your 3 daughters to enjoy traveling together. That's kind of your foundation for it was your experience here, recognizing.
It's been a learning curve. We've worked out definitely what we're not to do, but we've also worked out what seems to work. And to give you an example, year before last, before COVID and craziness of the world decided to do what it did, we took a 3-week trip to the US. And we love the US, and we've done the US on multiple occasions because we find that the US is very much on board with autism and neurodiversity, more than we are, and 100% more than Europe and the other countries, because they just don't get it still. And we as a family, we all decided where we wanted to go in the States. I give everyone carte blanche. Where do you want to go? So some wanted to go to New York, some wanted to go to Boston, and some wanted to go to Las Vegas. And it was just like, okay, so we're doing a big trip. So even for everyone else, this sort of trip would be like, that's a bit too much. But we had to see people. We were seeing some friends of ours in Boston, and we wanted to go and see some friends of ours in Phoenix. So we had to make it work. So it was a question of doing our research, and I wanted to support hotels that we'd worked with in the past with our guests and things like that. So I want to know what works. And if it works, I'm going to use it again. I'm not a great one for trying new things, because for me, why would you try something new if it doesn't?
But it ain't broke, don't fix it, huh?
I'm a great believer. And we do that extensively. So even from when we leave our home, we have the same driver that comes to pick us up that the girls know. He's got the same black Viano that he's driven for the last God knows how many years. He picks us up in that. We get to the airport. We've already phoned ahead. We've got special assistants waiting for us. We've got this lanyard system here in the UK, which identifies the young person, or I actually wear it for my daughter because she won't wear it, that this family will need some extra assistance. So people seem to see this lanyard and understand what it means. They're not always the best at what they do, but at least it gives them a little bit of a forewarning that I'm coming in your direction.
Right. It's a beginning.
You need to think about what you're going to do. And, we've always booked directly with the airlines, regardless. We don't go through third parties, because you've got more control over your booking if you deal directly with an airline. So for us here in the UK, British Airways, Virgin and South African Airways have been amazing for us as travellers. And we've always spoken to them. They have special departments that look after special needs. So all special needs are grouped together in one call centre, and you can make a request for a specific seat if you need to be met off the aircraft personally, if you need a buggy, or if you just need assistance going through customs. So we can book all that in advance. And this is what I do for myself, and this is what I do for my customers. So
I want to talk about that. Let's fast forward a little bit, because I want to make sure we have enough time to talk about that. You're now you've been replaced in hospitality. You have to find something else to do, and you begin to formulate a new business that you from your experience. So talk again, kind of segue into what you decided to develop first when you went into this new business. How does your foundation and its components support the needs of neurodivergent families? Talk to us a little bit. I know there's a lot there, but let's start with that.
So COVID, obviously, for travel agents wasn't very kind. The world stopped traveling overnight. And do you know what? I completely understand it. I don't want to travel. It's not right to travel at the moment until we're on top of things. So it just gave me a bit of time to think. And I need to do things for my head, and to keep saying I need to do things right. And I can't just sit and watch loads of boxes of Netflix and things like that, because that doesn't work for me. I need to work. So we've done some work with a local charity that had pulled me on board to try and do some sensory friendly holidays. So I was working with them and with their director, Chris Richards. And we were talking one day, and I said, do you know what, Chris? It worries me. I've got 3 girls that need a job when they're old enough. And the statistics in the UK at the moment are only 16% of autistic adults are in work, full-time work.
Wow.
So the statistics are disgusting. And we were having this chat with Chris, and I was going, it's just wrong, Chris. It's just wrong. And rather than being a parent that just shouts and hollers and says, oh, it's terrible, and just starts doing that, I thought I'd do something about it. So we formed the Kimmel Foundation. So the Kimmel Foundation's main aim is to get 16 to 24-year-old neurodivergent young people into work. So we looked at what was out there. We looked at the provisions that were currently out there, and it was a one-size-fits-all, which doesn't work for our neurodivergent community. You know, it's great to practice interview skills and things like that, but, you know, these young people struggle with interviews. So let's do things different. So we built a 12-week personal development and employability skills training course. And no one else does what we do. I know the National Autistic Society in the UK spent £1 million on doing their Interwork program.
Wow.
I spent $4,500 on building our program and pulling people in to run it. So we have an incredible program of 6 weeks personal development and then 6 weeks job coaching. And unlike other employment companies, we don't have jobs lined up for people that they don't want to do. So say, for example, my daughter, her love for animals is incredible. So she would want to do something with animals, regardless of what it was. In the UK, you're sort of told to get a job, and it will probably be with the opticians. So Specsavers is a big employer of young people that want to get into work. So there's no point sending my daughter to Specsavers to do her work, because it's not going to work. These things don't work. So we spend time with the young person to work out their strengths and their weaknesses and what they need to work on. And we actually spend time on a one-to-one basis working with these young people. And we've got one young lad who said to me, Nick, there's no job for me out there. There's nothing. I said, listen to me. You and me talk about ice hockey every single week for about an hour. Your team's doing poorly. My team's doing really well. So I enjoy our conversations. I said, look, there's ice rinks all around us. I said, what about if you got a job driving a Zamboni? He said, you know what, Nick? That would be the best ever. I would love it. I said, so listen to me. There is a job for everyone out there. So that is our mission. Our mission is to get these young people through our program. We're also talking to companies in the States at the moment about...
Okay, I wanted to ask you about that. So this isn't just kids in the UK that you're working with. Someone anywhere in the world could get in touch with you and develop a relationship with their child and help.
So the 6 weeks personal development is the key to it. You know, job skills side, there's enough people doing that for the neurodivergent community, but it's the 6 weeks personal development. So we work with our counsellor and we work through things and we break things down. So 3 weeks ago, we talked about what their diagnosis meant to them. And these kids just saw the negative. They didn't see the positive. So we spent an hour going through the positive with them. And you know what? I came off it and it was just like, I felt so good. I was tingling. It was just a beautiful moment that we'd shaped these 7 young people from the negative side of what they saw their diagnosis meant to them, this piece of paper, and they couldn't see past the negative. And
do you think that's maybe because all they're told is what they can't do?
100%, Judi. It's terrible. It's what society deems that you can do. They don't want people to think out of the box. They're quite happy with putting people in box, paying people benefits. But we've always said that we want people into work. And that is the most important thing for our foundation. So it's about mentoring these young people. Look, and I'll be honest with you, Judi, not everyone's ready for work. So we have a Stepping Stones project, which we have a shop in town here. And there are currently 9 young people on that. And they have all sorts of conditions. There's some really sad stories from some of these kids. Some of these kids have been in care. They've, and their stories aren't what shaped them. It's how we get society to actually do right by them. And I'm a great believer in that. And this program that we do, they go into this shop and they practice work. So it's like, what does a lunch break looks like for an autistic person? Because if you said to an autistic person, have a lunch break, they're going to go, what do you mean? I've never had a lunch break before. Okay. So we work with them and we break it down, and we do sort of a little bit of workplace banter, like in the morning when you ask someone how they are, and bits of chit chat, and just sort of some social skills with them while they're in the shop. And then they deal with customers. So the customers know what the project is. They go in, they buy stuff, they come out. And it's great to see them working through that, because that's often the boundary, that the social anxiety is often the boundary that these guys feel they can't work because their social skills don't allow them to. So we work with them on the social skills. But then some people aren't ready for this. So we do further education. So we work with universities. We're doing some research programs with two of our really big universities over here at the moment, a couple of year programs we're working on. And it's about teaching these universities what they can teach their pupils in school, so that they don't, in theory, need to come to us, that we can put things in place 3 or 4 years earlier. And it's really good to see. But the problem is, it's great having these kids ready for work. It's the employers who are my next target in all of this, because the employers don't get it, and they still don't get it. And even though we have rules, like you have rules, these kids are often overlooked, Judi, and it's really it breaks my heart to see this. And
so, do you work with a particular employer? Like, if you can find a job for one of these kids, and an employer agrees to take the young person, then do you work with that employer to prepare them for this young person coming in to work?
So what we do, we've just commissioned 3 CPD, which is continual personal development courses here in the UK, which we launch tomorrow night. And
is this also under the Kimmel Foundation?
It's all under the Kimmel banner. Yeah. We're slowly taking over the world for the right reasons, though. For the right reasons.
Okay, that's good.
So this is our educational arm of the business. So this is our first course is neurodiversity first aid, and it's first aid, not last aid. And we want employers to understand what's going on in their businesses.
I just got what that meant. First aid versus last aid. It's not first aid like healthcare if someone's having a heart attack. Oh, that's very interesting. I love that. Okay.
So we have a 3-hour course, and it basically educates employers as to what's possibly going on in their workforce. So they're going to have people that have not said they've got any condition because they're too afraid to. Because still in this day and age, people are still worried about saying, I've got this, because they don't want people to think badly about them. And we're just trying to change people's minds by giving them the opportunity to see the greatness that's out there. And also, if something needs to be done, like a reasonable adjustment. So a reasonable adjustment here in the UK is something that's protected by law. So it means that if you are working in, say, for example, a call center, and we have someone through the foundation that wants to work in the call center, fantastic on the phone. But in call centers, they have something called hot desking. So I'm not sure if you have that in the US.
I haven't heard
it means when we have loads of desks and you just pick a desk. So for the neurodivergent community, having to choose a desk, which could be a different desk every single day, is not a comfortable thing.
Right.
So we work with the employer and say, look, can Judi have the same desk there every single day? She can put a pot plant in the corner, but I want it away from the coffee machine and away from the fire exit door, because everyone nips down the back steps to go and grab a cigarette. So we want to work with you. It's going to cost you nothing. It's going to cost you no extra money just to give them a desk. And it's their desk that they know of. So we work with the employee. So we prime the employee through our foundation course. We work with the employer during the interview process. And if they get the job, we work with them after, because we want the person to feel comfortable in their new employment. We don't want them to think that they're the new person and everyone's looking at them because they've had a little bit of assistance getting here.
Uh-huh.
We want to educate everyone in that office about what it is to be neurodivergent and to celebrate the wins. And for example, if something goes wrong, how to deal with it. There was an incident here a couple of years ago where there was an autistic adult who had been taken to a swimming pool by his two carers. And unfortunately, the carers arrived late and there was only 5 minutes worth of swimming. The young man was expecting to swim for half an hour.
Right.
It took, what did it take? I think it took 7 hours, 2 armed police officers and 8 members of staff to talk him out of the pool.
Oh my gosh.
And that's just because people don't understand. They don't get it, Judi. So that's why it's important for me as a father of 3 girls to try and educate people along the way. And even if the one thing you get out of it is don't judge me and my family when we come to see you, then you've learned something.
So let me ask you this. You have the Kimmel Foundation is one component of what you're working with. Under that, there's the trainings for the neurodivergent potential employee, for the employer, and I'm sure that you also work with the families to help support their needs as well. So is the travel component also under the Kimmel Foundation?
Now, the Travel Foundation was something that we set up a few years ago, and we just wanted to help other families that fear traveling, because it's 80%. This is a stat from the US. 87% of families that have an autistic young person in their household say no to taking a holiday.
Yeah, I know that's.
But 93% said they would if the necessary things were put in place. And these things are being put in place slowly. You have some amazing things in the US. You've got MESA, which was the first certified autistic friendly city. And it's run by Mark Garcia, who's an incredible man. I speak to him often. And what he's done for that town by training the whole town. So if you provide a service, whether you're a first responder, whether you're an educator, whether you're working in the bowling alley or at the front desk of a hotel, you have been trained in autism awareness. And it's a beautiful thing to see. And I hope that is the first of many towns in the US and in the world that go through that program. It's wonderful.
What about airlines? Do you feel that they're being made aware of special needs of young people that may be coming on the planes? From
your point of view, I think American Airlines, JetBlue, and I think those are the two that we've worked with that have been very good. We've put a note in the booking process, and this is why we always book direct, so that you have some form of call to the airline. We've always requested special assistance, and we've always chased it up a week before and the day before to make sure it's there. We've also booked the TSA assistance line, which is at all of your US airports, which is first class. It's beautiful. It works so well.
So talk a little bit about the process. I'm someone somewhere in the world who wants to travel with my child. I've never done this before. I know that I have some real concerns about it. My child is very uncomfortable with being touched or loud noises. Airplanes might be a challenge flying. I don't really know because we've never done that before. What is your process? I would imagine you start with interviewing the family, but what is your process and how is your working with you going to be different than my doing this on my own? What are some of the, what do you provide for me that I might not be able to do for myself?
So today I had a family that we had a Zoom with, and she wanted to go out for her sister's wedding, and it was in Spain. And she said, and we'd been emailing to and fro, and I said, look, the easiest thing is let's just jump on a Zoom and then we can have a talk. And I want to find out what your fear is before we work on everything else. Mm-hmm. And we talked about the young person and the condition that the young person was in and how they And we went through loads of things, all the sensory things, just to make sure that we got this right, because this young person had got multiple complications, and the mother was at the opportunity of saying, do you know what, I'm just going to let the husband go to the wedding with my other son. So we'll sort of divide and conquer, and we'll stay back and let them go. And I said, look, your biggest fear, that she told me, was the airplane. I said, look, my daughter, when we go on holiday, takes virtually everything but the kitchen sink in her hand luggage. We have putty, we have weighted blankets, we have popping toys, I have candles. I don't know why she takes candles, but she takes candles. We literally, this bag, I don't know how it gets through customs, but we have never had it turned back. It is full of her stuff that she feels comfortable with, and it makes her environment on the aeroplane hers. That's why we get on board early. She sets it all up. She gets her phone out. She gets her computer out. She's got her headphones, and we set it up. It's set up properly. So when we do take off and when other people come on, she's not looking at them. She's busy working with what she's brought in. And it's about planning. And that was the most important thing. And this mother was saying, but what happens if this young person has a meltdown? What about the other people on the airline? I said, look, we travel every year. It is my biggest concern. If you're settled, then you stand a fair chance of looking after your young one if something goes wrong. If you're in a terrible state, it's not going to work. So you've got to settle yourself, work out how you can do this. Let's plan it together. Let's talk to the airlines. Let's work this through from the moment you leave your house to the time you get to the airport. Get there early. We have what they call sensory lounges at a lot of our airports now. Oh. So you can check in early and go and spend time and just sensory de-stress. You can just spend time doing that. So when you board the plane, you are in a comfortable state. And we go through this with the family. So we spend ages going through their fears. Most people are worried about what other people see. And unfortunately, I can't change that. I wish I could. There's a lot of ignorant people out there that will just tut and do what they do. You can't change that. People are people.
What are the visual supports that you were talking to me about earlier that you provide for travelers? What are those? We do a visual timetable from the moment they leave till the moment they come back. And obviously, when we did this big trip to the States, there was multiple pages of this visual timetable. For my daughter at work, that we just had pictures. We didn't have words. So we had a picture of our driver that was picking us up from the home, his vehicle, pictures of the airline check-in, pictures of the customs, pictures of the aeroplane. We pre-booked our seat, and I'd managed to get a picture of what seat we were going to be sitting on. When it got to the other end, obviously, that was a little bit more difficult in the States, but we had someone meet us at the door. So we had that. We had a picture of the man at the door meeting us. And then we'd specifically picked a certain car because it gave our whole family individual seats because we're 5. So we each had a proper seat rather than like a 3 on the back seat. So we picked a car with air conditioning. We picked air-conditioned seats, and this was all built into our thinking. So we went down to that level because we were going to be doing so many miles. We had to make sure that the vehicle we used was comfortable, not only for the luggage, but for the people in it, and that it was comfortable, and we had Wi-Fi, and everything goes onto this visual timetable. Pictures of the hotel that we're staying in, pictures of where we're possibly going to go to eat. So I'll pre-book food. And then the following day, if we were moving on, we'd do the whole process again. We'd have a picture of the car, a picture of the new hotel, the possible swimming pool that was at the hotel, and possibly who we were meeting in the evening because we were meeting friends. So pictures of all of them and what we would be doing. So we do this every single day. But for our travelers, we send them a printed version, and I send them every single day via WhatsApp pictures for the following day, so they can gently integrate it into their talking to with their young person, so they can start preparing them for the second day. So it's almost like an album of the travel, before you travel.
And it's important. It really is important for the neurodivergent community to see it. It's important for me because then I can visualize that I've done everything right for the family because I've seen every single component and I'm just basically sharing what I've done to them and done for them as a visual prompt.
And you stay in contact with them through this process. You're available if they need to get in touch with you while they're traveling. I'm assuming if when they get back, if they need to process with you about particular information and how they might want to change something for the next time, you continue to work with them. Is that correct?
I check in every day with them while they're away.
Do? Wow.
It's not always a phone call, but it's always it's a WhatsApp or a text wherever they are, because I want them to know what I've done for them for the following day. Because things change, the world changes. There might be, say, for example, we had a family at Buckingham Palace last year and there was an issue at that specific time that we'd booked. So I sent them a message in the morning saying, look, Nigel's going to take you to go and feed the ducks now. And we're going to do Buckingham Palace after lunch. I've organised lunch. So we've got to think on them. We just think on our feet. And by being in contact with them, it stops something blowing up that shouldn't. Right. It means that we can react quickly as a company to try and help that young person and that family have the holiday that they thought perhaps they couldn't have, but they're now having.
Now, you do this when not just flying somewhere, but you do this on cruises. You do this in local transport. You don't have to fly anywhere, but if in the States I wanted to take my child, say, to Disney World, you might work with me on that.
Yeah,
right?
Do you know what? Disney World, Disneyland, Universal, all your big attractions are very friendly for the neurodivergent community. We've worked with them in the past. My kids, I've done Disney too many times. I've been very blessed to be able to do that, and it's now working because we can now pass on our experience that we've done on our personal travels with people that are coming through to call us up and saying, look, where should we go next year, Nick? This year is still a bit of a write-off in the UK, but where do you think's safe to go? Should we stay local or should we go long haul? So we talk things through, and it's, look, I'm a dad. I want them to have the same experience that my kids have.
And the profile of the young people that you work with, when you say autistic, that's on the spectrum, but are there other neurodivergent profiles that you also address in your work?
My kids tick the boxes of most of the neurodivergent components. So we will work with everyone, the same as we do with our foundation. It's about trying to help these families because there's help out there. It's just steering them in the right direction to be able to push them in the right direction so that they can enjoy a well-earned break, because it's respite. It's tough. If you tell me any family member that's got a neurodivergent family and said that life's easy, I'd like to spend some time with them and work out how it's easy. It's not. It's tough.
So for those people who may not know exactly what the neurodivergent umbrella encompasses, we're talking perhaps ADHD, kids who might have some real issues with ADHD, maybe children who have huge anxiety issues. Is that right?
Most definitely. Yeah, absolutely. And it's a big spectrum these days. And this new word of neurodivergent covers quite a big
That's what I want to kind of go over.
Yeah. And you know what? Everyone's entitled to help or a job or anything, and we've got to look after them, and that's what we do. And whether you have one or you have all the components of neurodiversity, or even if you're not diagnosed but you present as being like me, I'm here to help. I'm not. I want to help people. I've had a fantastic career, and it's now my time to pay back, and this is it.
You work with schools?
We've started working with schools. We're actually now starting to educate the educators on neurodiversity, and I never thought I'd be doing that because I thought they'd know about it, but they obviously don't. But they only know the basics about what they're doing and that sort of thing. And it's so we work with schools, we work on school groups. Obviously, post-COVID is a little interesting, and I think a lot of school trips won't possibly go ahead because I think people are still a little bit concerned. I know from the UK, we're still banned from traveling international for another couple of months. I see Australia and New Zealand have banned travel until 2022. Their borders are shut. So I know there's a little bit more freedom in the US at the moment with regards to sort of internal travel, and you have lots of options within the United States of America that you can get to within a few hours, and even road trips. Road trips is something that we don't specifically do in the UK, but you guys do it so well.
Yeah, we do a lot of road trips. Where did the Kimmel Foundation get its name? I'm just curious. I don't think I asked you that before.
So the Kimmel Foundation, Mr. Kimmel was a guest of mine at the hotel, and I knew him for years. And he was always talking, wanting to help. And he said to me one day, he said, "Nick, you never come to the States." I go, "Mr. Kimmel, I go to the States every single year." He said, "Well, you never come and see us." I said, "We've never talked about this." He said, "All right." He said, "You come next time." I said, "Yeah, okay, Mr. Kimmel." I thought nothing of it. And he said, his secretary phoned me and said, "Nick, are you coming to the States?" I was going, "Look, I'm going to the States with my family. We're spending time in Florida. And yes, we are coming to the States." He said, "Okay, Mr. Kimmel is going to send his plane to come and get you and bring you over to Phoenix." I said, "You don't need to do that. There's no need to do that." And I said, she said, "No, he's doing it, Nick. He's going to do that." So he said, "Nick, you're going to spend a week with me and we're going to fish every single day and I'm going to talk to you about business." I said, "Mr. Kimmel, the thought of fishing, I can't even get on a boat without feeling seasick, let alone going out on a boat with you every single day fishing." But no, we went over there. We ended up in Jackson Hole, which was my first time in Jackson Hole. And what a beautiful place that was. And I spent every single day fishing with him. My kids fished and caught 10 times more fish than I did. And he said, "Nick, I want to invest in you." I said, "Mr. Kimmel, you've done enough, please. This isn't what we're here for. We're here because I value you as family now." He said, "No, Nick, I'm going to invest in you." And I said, "No, I'm not looking for that." And we went home and he spoke to my wife. He said, "Why on earth is your husband so awkward when it comes to this? I want to help the man." And I said, and she said, "Nick, he wants to help you." And I said, "No, we don't need the help." I said, "I'll tell you what we'll do." I said, "We'll set up travelingwithautism.com, which is our website." And I said, "I'm doing something," because he said, "You don't buy a car with this money, Nick. You do something right with it." I was going, "I don't need a car." So we set up travelingwithautism.com as a way of helping families access what we access as a family.
Oh, how nice. What an amazing man.
The ironic thing is, when he passed on, which was a couple of years ago, and we were actually in the air to go and see him, he had actually left all 4 of his multi-million-dollar companies to his staff in equal shares. And he always said, "Nick, there is a job for everyone out there." So that's our mantle. So we've picked up the mantle that he did, and we use his name with the kind permission of his family. And the Kimmel Foundation and Kimmel Solutions is my way of saying thank you to him for the guidance he showed me. And it's now my turn to do what he did.
That's amazing. We're coming to the end, and there were some things I wanted to talk about, but we didn't have a chance. But I was wondering if there are any suggestions that you might want to bring out that we didn't talk about, any bits of information to parents or other educators or other mentors of children that might give them some pause and think that maybe you might be able to help them with something that they're going through. For example, you might say to the parents, a red flag might go up, if you're going to the supermarket and your child is all nervous about that trip and organizing something like that. That could be a foundation maybe to do some other traveling if they were to work with you.
I think if you look at, if we start with the travel side of it, we post lots of videos on our social media. So our social media is Willie Wonka Travel. So if you just look at Willie Wonka Travel,
I love that name. That's what caught my eye, was that name.
So we have lots of our videos on there, and we post when we go on holiday. We post sort of like tutorials of how we pack our bags and things like that. Now, for a lot of people, wonderful. They'll go, "Why would you do that?" But people need to see what we're doing, and I describe what's in my daughter's bag, and the amount of comments I have back going, "I would never have thought to take that." And look, there's no right or wrong way to travel.
Right.
It's just we're just using our experience as a family, because we know how difficult travel is, but we as a family have to make it work because there's 5 of us. And we travel as a family. We don't travel as a 1 or a 2. We travel as a 5. So we put lots of videos online, and there's lots of helpful tips on there. All my contact details are on there. And before you do anything, when you're thinking of traveling, you know, even if you're not going to book with me, that doesn't make any difference. Just make a phone call or connect with me and send me a couple of messages saying, "Look, Nick, my biggest fear is this. What have you done?" I'll happily send back what I've done. It will work. It's what worked for me. It might work for you. It might not, but it's something else in your toolkit of when you're going on holiday that you might think, do you know what? That is not a bad idea. Even if we don't use it, I'll pack it. And look, it might. From the other side of the view, look, we're talking to various businesses in the US, and we're talking to various educational providers about our courses and how our courses could perhaps work. You know, even if we look at the welcoming autistic guests, it's not specified as it's a UK course. You know, the guests travel everywhere. You know, it's about having the knowledge of how you look after people when they come through your doors. It's basic hospitality. We've tailored our course for a little bit towards the London market, because in the London market, 90% of the frontline staff, English isn't their first language. So in the big hotels. So we've tailored it so it's not a basic course, but it gets over what it needs in a sort of a sensitive way, so that they get something out of it, even if they think language could be a barrier. So that's a really good course that we do. And the Unearthing Autistic Talent is our other course, and that's just showing employers what's out there and how to look after your staff, and why you shouldn't be afraid of this unbelievable talent pool that a lot of people are looking over. You know, there's a lot of great companies out there like Microsoft and IBM that actively recruit the neurodivergent community. But the other companies could if they understood it. So we want to just educate people about what it is. You know, it doesn't matter if you're in the US or in the UK, a neurodivergent person is a neurodivergent person. You know, once you've met one, you've only ever met one. We're all different. So look after us differently, but have knowledge to feel comfortable that what you're doing could make the difference.
I just want to throw in here, since you haven't mentioned it, but your agency, your travel agency, is certified. Is that what it is? The courses, or the travel agency has a special certification?
So we were the first UK certified autism travel providers.
Okay.
And it's the IBCESS, which certifies a lot of things in the US. So your Disney's, your and all your bigger theme parks are all certified by the IBCESS. So we took the course as an opportunity, because I wanted to see if there was something else I could learn for when we travel as a family. And it's been very useful. It's great for people to see that we actually know what we're talking about, let alone being a father of 3 girls that travels. But we've also got that piece of paper above the wall that says we're now certified in it. And I'm very proud to have that. And we're here to help. That's all we're here for. It's not a sales pitch. I'm no more expensive than anyone else. You know, I'm here.
I think it's wonderful. I think what you're doing is wonderful. I hope that our listeners who have neurodivergent children this will open the door for them and allow them a little more freedom in traveling, and give them a resource because it can be very lonely and very frustrating and very nerve-wracking to think that you're going to be going somewhere and anticipating some of these issues that you don't really know how to address. So I hope that our listeners will get in touch with you and go to your links. I know that you will respond to them and communicate any information that you have, as you said. Thank you so much for being with us. I very much appreciate all the time. I know everyone puts in time with this, and you're doing it out of the goodness of your heart. And I very much appreciate the time that you're giving me. I want to thank our listeners. We're going to be continuing to explore neurodiversity over the next few months. And I will introduce you to resources, programs, and people who are working in the neurodivergent community. So I hope that you will be able to use that to your best benefit in whatever situation you are in. Please take the time to contact Nick. He is a great guy, and he is so forthcoming with so much information that I know it will not be a waste of time for you to be in touch with him and through his links. Everyone, please stay safe, and I will see you at the next podcast.
Thank you, mentors, for being with us today. If you found this podcast of value, please visit justeducationfirst.com to subscribe to our blog and mentorship and education podcast so that you may continue the exploration with us. Our goal is to provide a free treasury of information for our listeners so they can become acquainted with the amazing resources that we have available to us. We want to thank all of our guests for giving their time and sharing their wealth of information with us. Please also visit their websites and explore more of their resources to further your pursuit of the topic. Hope to hear from you at justeducationfirst.com. Have a good week, and thank you.